We're good
Okay.
to go, Sunny.
All right. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And just to give you a little background, this is the Justice and Memory Team. This is our second meeting, and we will continue to talk about race and justice, which, as I said on the last meeting, it may be uncomfortable at first and talking about it, but we can get through it and we can talk about it without getting all too emotional. But you can't, and sometimes it will be uncomfortable. Um, when we're talking about race and justice, we're talking about Lemon, and we're going back decades. We're going back to the 60s. This little community was a 100% Black community that was located off of Baxter Street. Walking from UGA football stadium, it was about 4 blocks up Baxter. It was on about 22 acres of land. There were about 37 families that lived in the community, and it had achieved 57% home ownership. And then in, I think it was 1962, the urban renewal, the City of Athens and urban renewal in partnership received approval for urban renewal, which led to the erasure of our community. So we're going to be talking about that tonight and what happened. So that gives you a little background. So with that, I wanted to go ahead and start with our agenda for tonight. And we will start off with a moment of silence for the deceased descendants from Middletown. Thank you. Thank you. Some members tonight are on the phone only. So those that are on the phone, if you say something or have a question, please call out your name. So Charlene is taking the minutes, so she will be able to capture the minutes correctly. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, Charlene is our secretary. If you would go ahead and do a roll call, because we're going to vote tonight. So we need a roll call of who's present.
Okay. Hattie Whitehead.
Here.
Christine Davis.
Here.
Mike Hamby.
He's absent tonight.
Okay.
Phone call from him.
Jennifer Rice.
Here.
Charlene Marsh. Kelly Gertz.
Here.
Crystal Coburn.
Crystal's here. She was muted.
Here. Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Blaine Williams.
Here.
Shayla Lee.
Here.
And Allison Kay.
Here.
Great.
Okay, you can hear what's going on. If they stay in
Freddie's on the phone. Freddie?
I'm on the phone. Yeah.
Okay. Freddie, Freddie's on the phone too.
Okay, and I see that Mariah's here too. I guess I'm going based off of the previous minutes from the last meeting, so I'll make sure to make those people are here too.
Okay. Geneva Johnson and is not going to be on the call, but Bobby Cook is trying to get on the call.
I'm here.
Okay, you're here? Okay, well, Bobby
Yeah.
Cook is here too, Charlene. He's on the phone. Okay, can we have the reading of the last minute? Charlene?
Yes. All right, so the minutes from the Wednesday, September 2nd meeting, there was a discussion about the background of Town, explained by Miss Hattie. Just a bit more information about the history of Town, the demographics, and then going into the involvement of the city of Athens and the University of Georgia in the urban renewal project that destroyed Town. Then we had a moment of silence for the Town descendants to acknowledge and show respect for those who are no longer with us. We also went through the members who were present. I don't know if I have to read out the members who were present. Okay. All right. Then we went through a detailed explanation of the expectations of the team. And we talked about like full participation and constant participation throughout the process. There was no voting in this meeting. It was just mainly discussion oriented. And there were two main action items. Ms. Hattie asked Dr. Rice to research a historical marker for Town, as well as the associated costs and other details. And the second major action item was Ms. Hattie agreeing to share some relevant documents with the group. And I believe those documents are housed in the share drive that Crystal shared earlier today with members. And there was also a note made about the difference between the Justice and Memory team between the Justice and Memory team and the Town Project team. And then there was an indication of 3 people being in support roles for the committee: Mayor Gertz, Blaine, and Crystal, as well as Shayla and Allison as interns in the office. Then we had an introduction of the individuals and their various roles. And there was discussion of a need for a public statement about Town and the purpose of this committee, as well as the tasks, and discussed the need for assistance from commissioners who are on the committee. Next, there was discussion about the review of wording in the resolutions that were previously written by the Town descendants. Then we again reviewed the purpose of the committee, and we discussed the timing for the future meetings, which would be Mondays at 5 p.m. But of course, it would depend on whether it was an every week type of thing or just as needed. And there are just a couple of additional notes about the blurb about Town to facilitate discussion, potential podcasts and videos to raise general Athens community awareness about the Town neighborhood and what happened to it, and another note about Crystal making the drive for all of the documents.
Okay. So I would like the minutes to be amended because we had 3 people that couldn't get onto the through the call to the meeting. That was Freddie, Geneva, and Bobby. So if you would amend that, the minutes for that, then I would go ahead and make a motion. Okay, Jen?
Yeah, Ms. Hattie, you want to make a motion to accept the minutes?
Yes.
I will second that. I think we can, everyone in favor of accepting the minutes with the amendment that Ms. Hattie just proposed to note the members who were not able to join us due to connection difficulties. We can just raise our hand, I think, accept the minutes. All right, anyone not in favor of accepting the minutes? All right, we're good on that.
Okay. All right. What I would like to do now is I talked about last week. I tried to talk about last meeting rather. I was trying to talk about what happened and the city's role and why we were asking the city for some type of a documentation of what happened. So, Crystal, will you put up slide number 271? I said documentation, but I was really trying to say a statement from the city. I want her to put up slide 270, page 271 from the council minutes.
Is that from the most recent minutes or from the 1950s minutes?
Those are the what I gave you, what I sent you. It's got page 271, and it's got the page number on the, I think it's on the top of it. It's 271. Do you see that? Okay, if you put that one up. Okay, this one, and this is from 1954. I just want to show you why we were asking for a public statement. But this one basically has it was a petition from the received from the property owners on Linden Road, asking for a street light and for the street to be paved. That was December 7th, 1954. So this was the first this is the first thing we had, and I'm not really sure if y'all can read that, but this one was the first one that we had concerning the asking for a street light and for the street to be paved. That was in December 7th, 1954.
Miss Addie, please
Yes.
excuse me. The Google Drive document isn't downloading. I'll keep doing my best to get it to download, but I don't want to interrupt you as I try to make that happen.
Okay, I think everybody have the documents anyway, but I just wanted to show those who might be coming in and looking at the following us tonight. Okay, and if you flip over to page 283, January the 5th, 1955, there was another request, and it was voted on to certain portions of Linden Road, water and sewage, and for other purposes for Linden Road, paving and curb guttering and water, and install of street lights. One of the councilmen in the 3rd Ward suggested that, and this was voted on and approved. That was in 1/5/1955. And again, in June the 14th, 1956, there was another request that Linden Road be put on the paving program as soon as possible. And this was brought forth from Kimbrough. I guess he was the commissioner in that area. Then again, in February the 3rd, 1959, on page 325, there was another request for Peabody Street, Finley, and Linden Road to be paved with all the necessary upgrades that go with the paving. So you had all these requests to upgrade the paving, the sewage, and the water, street lights in the neighborhood. And they were approved in the council meeting, but it never happened. It never happened. No paving, no upgrades, nothing was done. And there was no evidence of anything that's saying that they should not do that. So how did that make you all feel? What do you think? Give me your opinion on that. Open discussion.
Miss Hattie, my guess, and this is Kelly for those who are on the phone lines. I mean, frankly, my guess is that these requests were probably coming forward, and the then mayor and council of the city of Athens at the time were sort of effectively blowing them off.
Yes.
You know, oh, thanks for coming. Now we're going to move on. I mean, that's sort of my read of it.
Yes. The community was blown off. And what I can interpret from this was that they were already in talks or trying to get approval for urban renewal. It hadn't happened. The paperwork had been applied for, but there were discussions. So even though the city and the mayor and everyone had approved the pavement, it just never happened. Because in reading the urban renewal, in order to, you have to be, if you had all these things in place, it would have been hard to get urban renewal approval for urban renewal. By keeping the community at a low level of improvement, then it will be easier to get approval for urban renewal.
Mm-hmm.
So the talks had to have been in place early on, targeting Leonardtown community. And on top of that, in another minute, in another part of the minutes, it talks about in a summarizing that one on down in that particular one, they talk about Leonardtown has been a slum area. The safety, health, and the welfare, they were questioning the safety, the health, and the welfare of the community. They talked about the sanitation, overcrowding, transmission of diseases, infant mortality, and juvenile delinquency. Now that was all put in the paperwork to give a summary of what they thought they were saying, how the community was, in order to justify calling it a slum area, which it wasn't. We did not have juvenile delinquency. There were no diseases. I don't know where they get the infant mortality rate.
Patty, this is Christine. What year was that? What year was that? This is Christine. What year was that?
I am talking, I'm doing the summary from, I summarized it from 1954 up through 1959.
Okay, okay.
So I'm going back before even the urban renewal, talking about why they did not do the things that they had agreed upon and had approved to do in the community. This is all supporting why we were asking for the public statement, because of what the city of Athens did not do to help the community to achieve a better standard of living in the community by upgrading, by paving and upgrading the community. It was to keep it at a certain level. So this is what happened. If you look at all the documentation, you can only come out it one way. And that's what supporting what Mayor Gersh just said earlier. Any other comments?
Ms. Hattie, I think that's really important to show that the neighborhood there was working, to advocate for itself and the things that they needed, and that those things were being denied.
Yes.
Just like you said, the purpose of sort of suggesting that this area was not suitable for people to live when it was clearly a thriving neighborhood. So I think that's really important that you've located this information in the minutes to show that those things were not done when they were supposed to be done to provide the necessary infrastructure that community should have had.
Right. So we're just trying to get everybody to understand, you know, why we're looking at this now and why we were asking for the public statement at this point.
It's interesting, Miss Hattie, in the kind of most recent of those minutes, there's mention of some improvements over on Minor Street, just off West Broad, you know, also an historically African-American neighborhood.
Mhm.
You know, and that was a request granted, you know, that they discussed the actual engineering work going into that. So you know, I always wish I could go back in time and be in the heads of people who, you know, are impossible to be in the heads of. But,
Yes.
I mean, it certainly seems that there was the will to invest in some places, but not to invest in others. So I'm curious about the level of conversational planning that may have preceded the formal planning that's revealed in, you know, the trove of documents that has been uncovered in the last couple of years. I do have to mention, Miss Hattie, I have to jump off for a little bit. I had a longstanding occasion to meet with some high school students, but after I meet with them, I'm going to jump back on. So
Okay.
we'll let you know.
Okay. All right. Crystal, can you put up the dorm? We have a picture of a dorm, and if you can do that right now. If you can't, and I'm going to go ahead and speak to it. But we have a picture of that one. That was Bobby Cook's house, and if you can see the dorm in front of it, there's some of the things that we had to endure as urban renewal started. And once urban renewal started, it was University of Georgia's responsibility to get all the residents moved out of the neighborhood. And while some people had vacant houses, it was still treated as if the whole neighborhood was vacant because there were ditches, ditches dug in front of the houses, and they were open ditches, and they were left open. And when we came home from school, we had to jump across the ditches, open ditches, to get home. There were open ditches. There were bulldozers on maybe on the side of your house that you were living in, pushing down houses on one side. There were bulldozers that started up 12 o'clock at night, a.m. And Christine was the one that was really verbal about this. Christine, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So,
Yes, yeah, that happened. That happened. Mm-hmm.
and they were afraid at night that the bulldozer was going to hit the house. But, you know, they started up at 12 o'clock at night. That was a way of sort of terrorizing the neighborhood.
And also blocking off the entrance, so we only had one way in and one way out. My mother and I, we only had one way in and one way out. We had to go down. We couldn't go up. They blocked it with the piles of dirt. So you only had one way in and one way out.
Mm-hmm. And there were houses that were being burned by the fire department. That was another way of terrorizing the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So, and all this happened when we were children in the neighborhood. So we know, we were there, we saw that. Another sign that I want you to put up, Crystal, is the sign of the Urban Renewal Project. Now, this sign, there were no meetings of any kind with anyone in the neighborhood. This is the sign that we first saw, that we understood something was happening in the neighborhood. The city is, you can see it says University of Georgia, an Urban Renewal Area Project. Now, University and Athens were in partnership. So nobody in the community knew what was going on when they first put up this sign. There were no meetings from people in the community. No one came to the community. So there were a lot of speculation, a lot of anguish as far as what was going on. But this sign was the first indication that something was going on. But even at that, the community had nobody to turn to, nobody to say, help us. Not a single person in the city of Athens was when to help, to reach out, to support. No one to support the community. We knew that university had something to do with it, but not until this sign was put up, because they wanted this was prime property, and the university wanted this property because it was in walking distance of the campus. And I don't want to do all the talking here, but I'm just trying to give everybody understanding why the Justice and Memory team was put together on the resolutions that we are asking for, and particularly the from the city, we're asking for the public statement because of what happened. We did not deserve that. The homeowners did not deserve that. They worked for meager wages, $8 to $10 a week, to accomplish the home ownership over a long period of time in order for it just to be snatched from them with no say so of what they would get returned for their property.
Right.
This happened, and there were no one to, there were at that time when the individuals had saved those who had gotten home ownership. It took years to get to that point, to get the home ownership. And you couldn't just turn it around on a dime when people had children and obligations. We were targeted. Most of the people were trying to target everybody to go to public housing. We saw that in some of the minutes. That they wanted everybody to go to public housing because they thought that would be best for that community. So how do you go ahead, Bobby?
That was the only solution that they came with for moving everyone out of Lemon Town, was public housing. That was the only assistance that they gave the community by the University of Georgia acquiring their property, was public housing. So you're giving up ownership to move in public housing. I mean, you degrading everyone in the community, which I guess that was the plan, to move everyone into public housing if you would go for it. Which some of the families had to move in public housing. But what I was saying is that if you gonna take the neighborhood, you taking the neighborhood. Well, give us a fast suggestion as to where to go relocate besides public housing, and it was nothing else said but public housing. So that right there just to show you that it was just, we want you out, and where you go, we don't even care. And here we are, citizens of Athens. We don't care where you go. Just get out of Lemon Town, and where you go, you're on your own.
That was true.
Also, the families that wanted to try to see about getting a house, like my mother, she had to pay rent until she could get out of that. Even though they had blocked us in, she still had to pay rent until she could figure out what she wanted to do. And that took a lot to try to do it because my father was not there, and she had to figure out how to do it, what to do, and but that was hard on her and on us because we didn't know what to do. She wasn't going to housing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Same for the Crook family. The same way we had to pay rent too.
Mm-hmm.
Until we found somewhere to move.
So,
right.
so the small amount of money that they did receive for the property, the homeowners did receive for the property, they had to pay rent from some of that money.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. This is Freddie. Well, I think we were one of the first families to move. But I said in one of the other meetings, we had 2 houses on that street, and we did not have enough money. They did not give us enough money for 2 houses to purchase another house. So we had to get a mortgage. But I think we were one of the first families who moved because I remember I had gone off to college, and I remember they called me letting me know that the urban renewal is doing this, they're doing this. And from time to time, I would come home on weekends, and we would go out different places around Athens trying to find somewhere, a house that we would like, which was kind of hard. But my parents didn't drive, and they didn't drive. They didn't own a car. But like I said, we had 2 houses on Linden Row, and out of the 2 properties, we did not get enough money to purchase another house, so we had to get a mortgage.
And you got to realize too that this was back in the 60s and before integration, that there was only so many communities that was available for people to move, and that was another problem. There were so many houses. We just didn't have that many houses in the Black communities for people to move into. So that's why I call it redlining to public housing. As if, and there was nothing. I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with public housing. I'm just saying that we were homeowners. So to go, as Bobby said, to go from being homeowners to public housing, it was it wasn't a good feeling. It was not a good progress.
No, it was an insult to us. This is Freddie again. It was an insult, and people, when they have struggled to buy a house, which was something to be proud of then, and now you snatching this from us and gonna say you're gonna throw us over the public housing.
And we were happy children, we were good children, we were very manable children, and we were clean, and the area was clean. So all the things that were in the minutes about, as they say, this slum area was not true. And it was really not even a feeling. As a citizen of Athens, it was really hard to just read this now and what all had been written about our community.
Now, our area, this is Fred again, was not a slum area. What we had, we kept clean. We didn't have trash around our house. We didn't have old cars, dilapidated cars around our house. We had yards that were dirt, but we kept them swept. I don't think any of us had lawns. Some of us might have had some grass, but we had dirt. We kept that dirt yards. We kept them swept. We didn't, like I said, we didn't have trash accumulating. And we didn't have old appliances because we didn't have that many appliances. So we wouldn't discard appliances and old cars and things around the house. We didn't have that. We wasn't in a slum area. What we had, we were proud of it, and we kept it up.
Freddie, do you remember when they used to put all those limbs together and sweep the yard with it? You put
I didn't tell Bobby. I didn't tell that we swept the yard with brush broom. I would leave that part out. I didn't want to tell the people that we swept, kept the yard swept with a brush broom. What they call them by, but they were brush brooms. That yeah, but we used to have to sweep that yard with the brush broom. Yeah, I was gonna leave that part out. I know I had to sweep the yard, but it was with you didn't have the regular broom. We had what they called brush broom.
That's right.
That's
Oh
true.
my God.
Our yard, some of the yards didn't have a blade of grass, but we had to sweep the yards, and sweep them we did.
We kept them swimming. Like I said, it wasn't with the house broom. It was with the, as Barbara said, and I wasn't going to bring that up. It was with the brush broom.
So people kept their yards up.
Yeah.
As you say, yeah. Yeah.
And we were valuable children. We had to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, to every adult in the community.
That's right.
And it's
That's
my
right.
juvenile delinquent. I never heard of it, doing that. No teenagers got in trouble. Nobody was locked up, arrested, and things. We didn't have any juvenile delinquent in our neighborhood because our parents and the relatives kept us in line.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else?
And back to the paving, when they did do some paving, they paved Peabody Street, which had like 1, 2, 5 or 6 houses. They only paved Peabody, but Linden Road and Finley Street, which most of the population was, they didn't pave them. They did pave. They paved Peabody, which only had 5 or 6 streets. But Peabody was an extension of the White Street. So white people lived on Peabody also. But they did come across Church Street and paved that block. But where it was all blacks and on Linden Road and Finley, we didn't get into pavement.
And Peabody, which I lived on at the last house, it was only partially paved. It was not paved all the way to connect.
Okay, I thought that had it, but that's been 60
Yeah,
years ago, so I wasn't sure. I thought they came down to a point, but I'm getting older, and I thought they came down to a point and stopped. But I remember they put pavement on Peabody.
It stopped right below my house. Right below my house.
Uh-huh.
Okay, did anybody have any questions about the discussions that we just had?
Yes, Miss Hattie, I have a question. So I know that there was a minority subcommittee that was kind of put together by the city of Athens. Is there anything that you would want us to know about that committee and like its relationship with the neighborhood of Town?
There was a subcommittee, and I went back and read all the minutes from the subcommittee. And these people I knew them as a child, and they were not and did not come to Town, and never did come to Town. But I call them yes people. And do you know what I mean by yes people? They are handpicked to be on committees. And and for some reason, people think that a few people can speak for the whole community, and that was not true. If they wanted to understand what was going on in the community, then they should have came and got the adults that live in the community, and they would have spoken for themselves.
That's right. That's true. And that's true. I agree to that. Really. Yeah.
So that minority committee to me was just yes people.
Exactly. Exactly.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Christine. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you're right about that because, the things that I heard, some of the people that were going around speaking, they weren't even property owners. They were just, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know. But their families didn't own property over there. They lived there for a little while, but they were not property owners. They didn't lose anything, Yeah.
Well, the ones that were on the minority committee didn't even live over there. Most of them didn't own property. They were just yes people. They were convenient, chosen from the community, plucked out.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, we're moving on. This is why we are asking for a statement of acknowledgement from the city. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move down to update of work on the subcommittees, and I'm going to start with the resolutions first. There were a lot of concern about white supremacy in the resolution, and when we were meeting with some of the commissioners, so a subcommittee of Mike, who, and let's see, Bobby, and myself, and there was one other person. Who was the other person?
On subcommittee.
Okay, was was on the Mariah. That's who it was. Was on the subcommittee, and we changed the word white supremacy to racism. And any discussion around that? The floor is open for discussion.
I'd love to hear how y'all came to that conclusion. I guess just like the process that y'all went through deciding that.
Well, we looked at different words that would fit in the resolution other than white supremacy. And Mike, Mariah, and Bobby and I just could not come up with another word um, except racism. We looked at the loyalist, and we looked at a lot of other words, but that's the only word that we came up with that we thought that was a fit for what we were talking about that happened in that day. We kept going back to that day and what was going on. What was the makeup of the city council? What was the makeup of the who was making these decisions about London Town? We kept going back to that in order to come up with a word. So if you go back to the 60s before integration and you go back and read what happened to in there, then we looked at it and we just came up with racism.
I guess my question is more geared toward like the specific language. Like, did y'all feel as if white supremacy as opposed to racism indicated something else, or like was a stronger term that would, I don't know, be less likely to be adopted?
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I kept trying to speak up earlier, and then I don't know if you all could hear me, but I would love to chime in on this. So, I mean, the thing was that Bobby, Hattie, myself, and everyone except Commissioner Hamby had previously approved the language of white supremacy to most accurately capture what happened to London Town. We tried to come up with other synonyms that still capture the power dynamics at play, but perhaps have a less politically charged connotation to make other people more comfortable. I'm not sure if Hattie wants to speak to what Mike's response was to that, because we weren't actually able to get him to be a part of those initial conversations around those synonyms, and he's also not here tonight to speak to how he feels about that now. So I guess we're just operating off the assumption that that is a suitable alternative without sacrificing the core meaning of our interpretation of what happened in London Town.
Well, I spoke to Mike at length, and I told him that we came up with the word racism versus white supremacy, and he was in support of that. racism instead of white supremacy. But the reason that we looked at changing white supremacy in the beginning, because it was some pushback from some of the commissioners as well as some of the small groups that we met with in the communities. But we was trying to explain to everyone that that's what we thought that happened in that day with white supremacy. But we did not want white supremacy to be a stop from moving the resolutions. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, we wanted to move the resolutions, and so that's why we said, you know, if there's a word that we can change to get the resolutions moving, then we need to do that. And so that's where we came up with this, so we can keep the resolutions moving. We don't want to put this big block before we can even start the work. So that's why we came up with the word racist.
Miss Hattie, do you and the others who have worked so hard on this feel comfortable moving forward with this language that's in the resolutions as we've received them for the committee tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
We're ready to move forward. And this is why we're having a discussion, because I want to go ahead and move for a vote so we can have this going. Any other discussions or clarifications or input?
I would just say it's clear an enormous amount of work has gone into these resolutions, and I really appreciate everybody's effort here. And I do hope they can move forward. I think it's time, and they're very meaningful. And thank you for working on those issues around the language and those things. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Hey, Miss Hattie, it's Kelly. Sorry I had to jump off for a little while.
That's okay.
Finished with high school students. You know, in looking at the language in the resolution, there are a couple of components that, you know, just functionally will need legal review. You know, in the be it resolved component, you're part of the challenge for cities and counties and governmental units in Georgia is sort of expenditure of funds to particular ends. And so the component regarding the revolving interest bearing account for Linentown descendants, you know, just frankly, I mean, I just always have to be honest about what the legal contours are, you know, is probably something that will need to be somewhat crafted differently than that to be legal. And then just a little bit of functionality around the property acquisition and land swap component. You know, there are a whole lot of different sorts of land swaps and property acquisitions. Some of them are, you know, easements for sewage infrastructure and things like that. Some of them are, you know, what you think of as, you know, sort of the larger scale, you know, we're going to give you this acre and a half, you know, we're going to acquire this 2 acres. So there may need to be just a little bit of finessing around that too, you know, just before something would sort of move forward with a full commission vote. So I kind of wanted to make those clear. You know, I'd be dishonest if I didn't highlight those things, just as some of the practicalities and the, you know, legalities that go through local government activity. You know, I could anticipate, you know, sending this to either some combination of the 2 commissioners that are on this body, Commissioner Parker and Commissioner Hamby, you know, maybe in conjunction with the county attorney's office to do some of that work.
Okay.
All right.
What I was going to ask later on in the meeting, because I don't know what kind of timeline that we're going to be looking at and where it goes from here. Once we take a vote, and for my understanding and for everybody else to understand, we need to know where it goes and what kind of timeline we're looking at, Mayor Gertz. So we can know about how long it's going to take this and who's going to plot that for us and let us, so we have a great understanding of how things are going to go. I was going to ask for a volunteer.
I mean, it's my anticipation that the sort of finessing or analysis would not take an enormous amount of time. I mean, certainly some of it is sort of clearly recognized legal framework in the state of Georgia that there's just boilerplate understanding of for any local government. And then some of it is just the sort of politics of how that's presented and what final language would go in front of and then receive acceptance by or adoption by the mayor and commission. I don't imagine more than 6 weeks if people got on it.
Okay. I would like someone to just flow that for us on it, like, okay, it's going to leave here and it go here, so we'll know as a team where it is when next time we meet, because I'm sure we're going to meet before 6 weeks.
Certainly one option for this group to contemplate is to say, we would like to forward this resolution for review by the two commissioners that sit on this body and the county attorney.
Okay.
So that could be an action that you may want to contemplate today.
Okay. Mariah, Mariah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Can you and Mike do that?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. And get back with us. We're probably going to have another meeting in about 2 weeks. So you think you can do that in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Miss Hattie, I wonder if the folks that have been put on this committee should put forward the resolutions that feel the most appropriate to them. If there's legal things that need to happen once we've put forward the resolutions that we believe are the most appropriate, that's fine if that's the next step. But I don't necessarily want us to already start stepping back and reworking things for legal sake. I think rather we should put forward the resolutions that we want.
I agree.
If legal needs to take something next, then legal can take it next. But I don't think that we should start compromising the resolutions that we want to put forward.
All right, let's go ahead and put forward the resolutions for a vote as is. And then if there's going to be some changes, that's fine. But we need to go ahead and put forward the resolutions as is.
Yeah, so do you want to make a motion to have this committee recommend the resolutions as they were distributed with the meeting information today? Do you want to go ahead and put that motion forward, Ms. Hattie?
Yes, I go ahead. I put that move. I so move that the resolution be accepted as is today.
Can I have a second from a voting member of the committee, please?
Second.
Great. All right. If you are in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed, say opposed now, please. And any abstentions? Okay. Charlene, I hear a unanimous adoption to put forward the resolutions in their current form, understanding that there may be some work that legal has to do, but that the resolutions as they stand are what this committee is recommending. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we'll come back to that in a few minutes. The next thing we're going to do is hear from the wall of recognition from Jen's team. Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, that's me again. So I was asked to sort of head up a subcommittee to work on the wall of recognition, our wall of remembrance, and we did constitute a group to look into this. It's myself, Bobby Crook, and we've also brought on Broderick Flanagan and Rochelle Berry, and we have met 2 times now. We've had really productive, excellent meetings. We met once remotely like this. And then a second time, we actually went out to the site and we walked through together around the former Lennon neighborhood site. And so we are in the process of looking at several different locations where some kind of marker or sign, some point of recognition could be placed. So we're looking at that. We're in the process of pulling together our recommendation. And I think, assuming we don't run into any problems, we have some consensus brewing, and we would like to, in about 2 weeks' time, make a formal recommendation for what this particular part of the project would be.
And you're going to stay in the right of way, correct?
So right now we're looking at the right of way as the most feasible, logical place to place any kind of sign or structure or anything that we would recommend. So it'd be along the perimeter of the neighborhood, thinking about kind of Finley, Baxter, Church, those streets as places where there would be an acceptable amount of room. And I just received some very useful information from the manager's office about this that I'll be reviewing soon about how this works dealing with the right of way and the kinds of approvals and things. I just received the information, so I'll review it as soon as I can and report back to the subcommittee. But we have lots of great ideas, actually. There's every time we get together talking about the really exciting ways to remember and honor this community through various kinds of representation, we've just been able to talk. And I don't know if Bobby or others want to say more that were part of that, but we've really had some really productive, nice meetings about this. And we have probably more ideas than we can see through to implementation, but we'll make a recommendation soon. Do you want to say anything, Mr. Crook, about those meetings we've had?
No, it was. I agree with everything that we decided on. I don't know if there was any more Lemon-Town residents would have any suggestions as or opposition as to what we have. I was thinking about. I know we went around the perimeter, but I wanted some at least one or two more Lemon-Town residents to approve what we approve, because I want it to be a joint thing. With just Bobby Crook, I don't want the neighborhood to say it was from one person's point of view. I wanted to get a couple of new people from Lemon-Town to just verify what we did, what we decided to do, to put the recognition.
We'll get involved in that, Bobby. Don't worry about it. We'll get together.
Yeah, because I didn't mind going and giving a general idea of where we wanted to put the plaque, but I still wanted some more people from Lemon-Town to back up what we're trying to do. And
that's fine. We'll get involved in that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was trying to keep it at about an hour. The meeting is at an hour. Is there any other things for discussion? We got to clear up. We had said that we were going to look at a purpose once we got the resolutions approved. So the resolutions have been approved. So I can go back and a group can look at a purpose statement now that we have the resolution approved. And from what I understand, that Mariah and Mike is going to move forward with the attorney to look at the resolutions that they have been approved and make some recommendations or suggestions of what they need to do and get back with us. Our next meeting is probably going to be about 2 weeks, so we can understand where we are. I will get with Crystal and send out another agenda. Jen, I would ask you that since you're going to be looking at the right of way and you might have to, I just want to, we have about 3 houses that was moved from Lemon-Town to other locations in the city of Athens. If you go to the historical, we would like to have those houses approved for historical markers. Because
so we also talked about fixing the placement of the existing sign for the school.
Union.
Yes.
Yeah, that sign is terrible. You cannot even see it. Bushes
got fixed. And we'll look into the other structures that were moved, what kind of designations. So I'll work with you to have a short but hopefully thorough and comprehensive presentation from the subcommittee about our full suite of recommendations in 2 weeks' time for the various ways to mark and have recognition points for the community. We'll hopefully have a presentation in 2 weeks if that's when we meet.
Yes, we're gonna meet in about 2 weeks.
Great.
Okay, is there anything else before we close out the meeting today?
Yes, ma'am. This is Blaine.
Blaine.
Hey, Jen, now that we've gone from sort of what are the regulations in general, and you have some specific, sounds like some specific sites, might be good if we met on site, and I can have our staff there to look at those specific sites, and we can be more tailored with our, passing on of information about what's feasible, and
That would be very helpful, and we could hopefully arrange that relatively soon, so that if we meet again in 2 weeks, we'd have that information. So I'll follow up with the email you sent me earlier today. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Miss Hattie, I just wanted to verify too. So the resolution that was approved by this body was the same one that currently sits on the Google Drive. It wasn't modified during the course of the discussion. I just want to verify that.
No, it wasn't modified. No.
Okay, thank y'all. Those are the two questions I had.
It's on the same one on the Google Drive. But we in addition to changing that one word, we did take out the structure of this subcommittee as well. So all that is out now as well. I wanted this probably to be as clean as possible, Blaine, to what we are, where we are. So that's where we are. Remember, everybody, this is the Justice and Memory Team. So we need to keep that straight. This is not the Leonardtown Project. This is the Justice and Memory Team that we put together. Thanks, Mayor, again, for putting it together. As we move forward, as we ease on down the road to getting everything in place. Once we get everything in place and get the final in place, then I can put a timeline together. But that's hard for me to do now, to understand until we see what it is. Jen, I would like to meet you all out there when you go and get an input.
Definitely. Yes.
Okay. We'll see you all in about 2 weeks on a Monday at 5 o'clock.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody for tuning in. All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
All right.